Have you ever seen those dog races? I was a child sometime in Florida. I got to see the greyhounds racing around the track. I guess they still do these races. The greyhounds, the fastest dog in the world. And what they do is they put a phony mechanical rabbit out on a robotic arm that goes around the track. And they open the gates, and those greyhounds, those lean, mean racing machines, they tear off after that phony rabbit. And the problem is twofold. One, the closer they get to the rabbit, the more the rabbit just keeps moving away from them. Secondly, if the dog ever did catch the rabbit, it would not be satisfying at all, because it's just kind of a fake rabbit around a cage. and in fact, I read one time there was a mechanical failure, and the dog actually caught up to the rabbit. That was a disappointed greyhound dog, wasn't it? I'm telling you, if I were Dr. Doolittle, I think I'd have to have a little talk with those rabbits and tell them, guys, this doesn't make much sense. You come out here night after night and you race around trying to catch the same rabbit. But have you noticed you never catch the rabbit? If I were Dr. Doolittle, I'd have to have a little therapy session with the dogs and tell them, you need to develop some healthy boundaries here. You need to get real with your life, because the dogs are tricked into thinking if they just could run a little faster, then next time they'll get the rabbit. Well, I think a lot of us in life, what we're chasing is not a fake furry rabbit. We're chasing after acceptance. We're chasing after love. Here's what happens, I think. Somebody in your life will find out whether you'll run harder if they'll withhold acceptance. So oftentimes parents and teachers and coaches and authorities and sadly preachers realize that because people were designed and made for love, we were made needing love and acceptance. We have found that because that's the thing we want more than anything else in all of life, people find that out, that if they'll withhold love and acceptance, that you'll do almost anything to try to get it. And I've thought about my own life, that especially in my earlier days, where without realizing it, I'd be like, I'm running, inwardly tired, inwardly anxious, but I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna have enough success. I'm gonna find enough approval. I'm gonna do enough of what people want me to do. The problem with this is that love, by its very definition, is not something that is a reward for running fast. Love, by its very definition, God's love, is something that is absolutely unmerited. It has nothing to do with how much you've run, how far you've run, or how fast you've run. The problem becomes, if we become like the greyhound chasing after the elusive rabbit called acceptance, what happens when you realize and finally admit to yourself, I can't catch that rabbit? No matter how hard I try, it's never enough. And what happens is that sometimes when a person gets to that point and you realize, I have done everything that I know to do, I have tried and I've tried and I've tried, and I still don't feel accepted. And in fact, what Grace is sharing was, I feel like now I'm the ultimate failure. And at least in Grace's situation, and in many others can identify with this, is that point where you feel like you've tried all that you can do. I made a vow, I'm going to catch that rabbit. I'm going to do what it takes to be a good little boy, or be a good little girl, and I'm going to make sure that people are proud of me, and I'm going to be accepted, and I'm going to be loved. And then the rabbit gets moved further, and finally at some point, that dog, any person, will fall down exhausted and say, I give up. Or somebody can come along the way and say, I'm sick of running after this. This is never going to work. This really is a one-way track to exhaust. And they just jump off and say, I'm just going to do things my own way. I don't care about anybody else. As we were seeing in an earlier session, how it is so possible that the same root of shame can lead us to either towards perfectionism or can lead us down the road towards rebellion. But it's the same kind of Same kind of process. Unfortunately, it is in our own families where we first encounter shame. And it's not just for the highly dysfunctional situations or places where there have been broken homes and alcoholism. And all of us probably in some way get tainted by this, but somebody wanting you to do better withholds love and acceptance, and you run hard after it. So it's worth sometimes just looking at your own family when you grew up to think about it. And this was one of the very first little inventories I saw when I was beginning to learn about shame. And I began to realize that in shame-based homes, there is a big emphasis on performance. And in fact, the performance gets emphasized more than the personhood. And it's not to say that it's like we don't care about the people in the family. It's just that the performance is so important that what the child gets the idea is that what matters around here is that I do enough. And so the thought process is that I'm a human doing rather than a human being. It's usually also in a home like this where it gets, the message comes across, it's not okay to make mistakes. You know. It's not okay. It's not okay to ever fall down, make a bad grade, mess up on something. It's not okay to even slip up and commit a sin or do something. Right? It's like somehow that makes you feel like that's not okay. And if that's the mentality, then the mind of the child says that I need to be perfect. Right? So this is part of what Grace is, the little girl's mind is saying, we may not be able to stay here. I might be abandoned. So the answer to this is don't make any mistakes. Just be perfect. It often is followed by not only you can't make mistakes, but it's like I can't do it well enough, no matter how hard you try. Somebody's always, why couldn't you have done better than you did? And so this leads to the mentality of, well, maybe things just never work out for me because someone else will be better than me. I just can't seem to do it well enough. It also has the idea of you must always do it better, and that leads to the question always going through the child's mind, have I done enough? Am I good enough? Look at me and see, do I look like I've done enough for you? You see how this all goes together, and then there's idea of support that's only conditional. We support one another. We support you only if you're doing well. So the child thinks, I'm okay only if you approve of me. What do you think of me? And almost in every shame-based home, there are undiscussed issues and secrets. There are things that, because we are so interested in appearance and we're so interested in approval, and we're so interested in performance, the things that are going wrong here, the family may be besieged by alcoholism, the family may be besieged by all kinds of problems or even abuse, and the whole message is you don't tell anybody about this, because the whole message of shame is you just hide, you just cover it up, you see. And I just so appreciate Grace sharing her story, because what she tells us in bearing her soul is the anatomy of how this can all come to pass in a child's life. And it is to say, essentially, that shame seeks to lead you by withholding acceptance and love.